Long ago, when wishes were valid, a king had several daughters, all of them beautiful. But the youngest girl was so gorgeous that the sun, although it had seen many beautiful scenes, was still surprised when it shone on her face. Adjacent to the king's palace was a large, murky forest. At the base of the ancient poplar tree of the forest there is a well. On hot days, the princess often went to the forest to sit and play by the well. To avoid boredom, the princess often throws a golden ball to catch the game. It was her favorite toy. One day, the golden ball that bounced up did not fall into her hand, but fell to the ground and rolled straight into the well. The princess watched, but the orb was gone. The well is so deep that no one can see the bottom. Then the princess burst into tears. She cried louder and louder, crying endlessly. While she was crying like this, someone suddenly said, "Princess, what is it that makes you cry so much that even the stone has pity on you?" She looked around to see where the voice was coming from, and suddenly saw a frog sticking its big, ugly head out of the water. She said, "Well, who do you think? It turns out that the breed has been swimming under the water for a long time." I cried, remembering my golden ball. It fell into the well. Consolation frog, don't worry, princess, don't cry anymore. Surely I will find a way to help the princess. But if I get the orb for the princess, what does the princess lose to me? She said, "Dear frog, you can take whatever you want from me, clothes, jewels, even the golden crown I'm wearing." Frog replied, "I don't like the princess's clothes, her jewels, even the golden crown she wears. But if the princess loves me, let me be a soulmate. You can sit next to the princess at her beautiful table, eat with the princess at her beautiful golden plate, and drink with the princess in her pretty cup, sleep in the princess's pretty bed. If the princess promises me that, I will dive in and find the golden orb for the princess." Princess says, "Yes, okay, I promise frog, I will do anything frog wants, as long as frog can get me back the golden ball." She promised so, but in her heart she thought that the silly frog was talking nonsense. The class of frogs sitting at the bottom of the wells competing with their fellows croaking all day long can make friends with people. Frog saw her content and dived into the bottom of the well. A moment later it came up, its snout grabbed the ball and threw it on the grass. Seeing her beautiful toy again, the princess was very happy. She bent down to pick it up, then ran away. Frogs called to follow, wait for me, take me with you, how can I run as fast as you?" Frogs tried their best to make their neck tendons squeak and called to no avail. The princess rushed home so she didn't hear anything. After a while, she completely forgot about the poor frog. Frog had to jump into his well. The next day the king, princess, and courtiers were sitting at the dining table. The princess was eating on her pretty plate when she heard a waddling dance on the marble steps. Up there, Frog knocked on the door and called, "Princess, the most beautiful young princess, open the door for me." She ran out quickly, trying to see who was knocking at the door. Opening the door, she saw Frog sitting. She hurriedly slammed the door shut and sat back at the dining table, her heart filled with anxiety and fear. At a glance, the king knew immediately that the princess's chest was beating continuously. King asked, "My dear, what makes you so afraid? Is there a giant standing in front of the door trying to take you away?" She replied, "No, father. It's not a giant but a disgusting frog. What does the frog want from me?" "Guy, dear father. Yesterday, when I was playing by the well, my golden ball fell into the well. Because I cried forever, Frog dived down to find the ball for him. But also because Frog asked me to promise him. I promised him he would be my soulmate, but at that time I thought he would never jump to land. Now he is outside the door and wants to come in with me." At that moment there was a second knock on the door and a voice called, "Youngest princess, open the door for me to come in." Doesn't she remember what she promised by the side of a cool well? "Youngest princess, open the door for me to come in." At that time, the king said, "If you made a promise, you must keep it. Just open the door and invite Frog in." The princess opened the door, and Frog jumped on her heels to the chair where she sat. Frog said to her, "She lifted me up to her seat." The princess was stunned, hesitated forever, then the king had to order her to do it. But as soon as he got on the chair, Frog asked for the table again. Sitting on the table, Frog said, "Now." She pushed her pretty golden plate close to me so we could eat together. The princess had to comply, but it was obvious to everyone that she was reluctant. Frogs eat well, but the princess eats every bite as if she wants to get stuck in her neck. "I've had enough to eat, now I'm tired." Ken Toy went into her beautiful little room, straightened the silk bed so that we could go to bed together. The princess burst into tears, afraid of the cold and sticky frog that she dared not touch. And yet he would sleep in her beautiful, clean bed. princess made the king angry. The person said, "Whoever helped me in my trouble, then I mustn't look down on them." At that time, the princess picked up Frog with 2 fingers and placed it in a corner of the house. When she went to bed, Frog jumped up and said, "I'm tired. I want to sleep in a bed as soft as hers. Take me up, or I will tell the king." The princess was very angry, picked up Frog and threw Frog on the bed with all her might, thinking to herself, "Now rest in peace, you disgusting frog." But when it fell, it wasn't a frog anymore, but turned into a prince with beautiful and cute eyes. By the will of his father, he became her best friend and beloved husband. At that time, he told her, he was enchanted by an evil witch, and no one but her could rescue him from the well. The two decided to return to the prince's country the next day. They slept soundly until morning. When the sun woke them up, a chariot came, with 8 white horses tied with golden chains, behind a young king's bodyguard, faithful Uncle Heinrich. In the past, when he saw his master turned into a frog, the faithful Uncle Heinrich was so sad that he had 3 iron rings around his heart to prevent the heart from being broken by grief. The carriage brought the young king home. Uncle Heinrich faithfully helped him and the princess into the carriage, and then stood in the back of the carriage. Uncle was overjoyed to see that the spell of love had been removed. When they had gone a long way, the prince heard behind them a cracking sound as if something had broken. Then he turned and asked, "Uncle Heinrich seems to have broken the car?" "Sir, it's not a car. It was the crack of a heart ring. When he turned into a sinking well frog, my heart ached, sad and painful." Along the way there was a crackling sound twice more. The prince thought it was a broken carriage, but in reality it was only the cracking sound of the iron rings around the heart of loyal Uncle Heinrich, which cracked open because the prince was free and happy.